What is going on, everybody? Sean here, back with some Goat Talk action live here on Hawk TV's YouTube. I am joined with my usual guests, as you know from last semester, Mike Vizino and Luca Murillo. We are Wednesday nights, 9:30 now. We are the late night slot, and I think it's going to be a little bit more consistent this year with Wednesday at 9:30. So if you are a Goat Talk fan, make sure you tune in every Wednesday night from 9:30. You guys got anything to say? It's been a while since we've been on.
To be back. It's been a while. Haven't been able to talk about sports in a long time in this kind of environment. We just had the Super Bowl. It's been a pretty fun year of 2021 for sports so far. So happy to be able to talk about it again.
Yeah, likewise here. Happy to be back. Similar to you, Faz, I haven't really talked about sports with a group in a while, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Talking about the Super Bowl, a lot really happened, so can't wait to get started with it.
I feel the same way. I feel like the only people I've talked to is my roommate and my dad a little bit about sports. So it's been a fat minute, as I like to say, since we've had the conversation. So we're in the 9:30 slot now, so shows are going to be a little bit shorter. We're going to be a little more focused on one or two topics, and tonight we're just going to have a laid-back conversation about the Super Bowl. It happened on Sunday. Mike, I will start with you. Just overall thoughts. Any comments you want to make on the Super Bowl?
I gotta say, as the WMCX resident Jets fan, and the Hawk TV resident Jets fan, I was happy to see Tom Brady win. I thought it was actually really cool to see him win with another team that wasn't the Patriots. I'll go as far to say is I think this game he absolutely solidified himself as the GOAT. Not necessarily the best to do it, but the greatest to do it. And again, as someone who spent so long rooting against him, I was actually rooting for him this game. I thought Tampa was going to win. I was hoping Tampa was going to win. So it was pretty cool to see him win in a different uniform and knowing that he's going to come back for one more year. I personally think, I know I've said this before, but I really think he should have retired after the game. Wasn't the most exciting game in the world, but I thought it was pretty interesting to watch. Just seeing Brady and Gronk in the Super Bowl in different uniforms was pretty cool. And that defense delivered a beat down to Mahomes and the Chiefs. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good game, but the Tampa Bay defense, I think, is really what stole the show. And obviously Brady getting his 7th ring was equally impressive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. Tom Brady, I feel like going into the game with 6 rings, he was already the best, quarterback, NFL player of all time. I think this win Super Bowl, you're shaking your head, but the Super Bowl
Don't worry,
win
we'll get
put him
there.
ahead.
We'll get there.
The Super Bowl win put him ahead as, I think, one of the best athletes of all time, maybe even edging out Michael Jordan at the moment. But I felt on another note, like Fast said, I was happy to see, Gronk, Tom Brady. Everyone had that argument going the season, like Brady was just a system quarterback because of Belichick. He was the reason why Brady was good. He really showed him with like a limited offseason. They didn't really have OTAs at a shortened, preseason camp. He went in there. They struggled early. Everyone doubted them. In the end, they came out on top. They honestly were the better team, I think, watching the game. Defensively, they had a better defense. Offensively, they utterly dominated. But the one thing that came from the Super Bowl that I think everyone needs to write in their notebooks is how important your offensive line is. It doesn't matter what skill positions you have. It doesn't matter how great your quarterback is. You only go as far as your offensive line. And I think this game really proved that. I mean, Mahomes tried his best. He was constantly pressured like almost every single snap, but yeah, offensive line from the Super Bowl. All the teams better take notes and really make sure they really, invest in their offensive line.
So I'm going to try to argue against Tom Brady not being the GOAT, and I think the only argument I need to make is that he cheated. He's a cheater. He's a proven cheater. And he kisses his kids on the lips and sucks the life out of them. It's the only way he's beating Father Time.
Agree with Sean.
He's a cheater. And Luca, you actually brought up, in all seriousness, you brought up a very good point. I'm pointing up because you're up there, but you brought up a very good point about the greatest athlete of all time. Now, I love to sit here and argue why Tom Brady's not the GOAT. It is hard for me. As much as I like to disagree with Faz, it is hard for me to argue that, besides that he's a cheater. That will always be on his resume for me. But the greatest athlete of all time, and I think it brings up a really interesting discussion because a name that's not thrown in there that should be is Serena Williams when talking about the greatest athlete of all time. I mean, you want to talk about accolades? She's far and I don't know if you've seen the tweets and stuff because it actually has been talked about on Twitter and stuff about Serena Williams being a better athlete than Tom Brady. And from accolade standpoint, 100% yes. I mean, her accolades are ridiculously almost double to triple of what Brady has done. But I mean, even Brady's stats are insane. He's got, what was it, like I want to say like a 14% win rate of all Super Bowls. Like he's won 14% or 15% of all Super Bowls, which is a crazy number. He's won more Super Bowls than any franchise. It is an insane number. It is. But yeah, I mean, that greatest athlete conversation is probably a conversation for another time. But Serena Williams is definitely a name to think about when talking about that. So Brady gets his ring. Faz, you said he should retire. Does that mean he's got 1 year left?
Listen, personally, I think with that team, I mean, that's a really talented team. With that team, I think he has a year left. I think this might have been his last shot at like actually winning a championship. I don't know if they're going to go that far next year. I would just hang it up at 7. Like you're already past 6, which is like kind of like the standard number of GOAT rings because of Michael Jordan, if you will. He passed Jordan in the ring count. I think maybe if you want to argue against him solidifying himself as the GOAT, he more than has solidified himself into that conversation. So, I mean, at this point, like you did everything you could possibly want to do. You won 6 with your team. You left in your first year. You won a ring with a completely different team. Not only a different team in a different conference, might I add, in the NFC and the opposite side of the bracket. I think what else does he have to prove other than prove to himself that he could play till he says he wants to play till he's 45? If I'm not mistaken, I think at the end of next season he would be 44, creeping on 45. So he might want to play his contract out. But to me, what else does the guy have to prove? I think the one thing in his career that Tom Brady had to prove to all the doubters, and again, this is coming from a guy who I despise him. I grew up hating him. I hated his teams. The biggest argument against him was that he was a system quarterback. And I think, quite honestly, this season he proved that, maybe he's not a system quarterback. Maybe he's just that great and that excellent of a winner. And to me, I think he proved the last thing he had to prove in his career with that Super Bowl win on Sunday.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, like Tom Brady. I know when he beat the Rams in that Super Bowl, I thought for sure he was going to retire. I thought, the Patriots team looked like they're going to end up, getting worse. So I thought he was going to end out on top, kind of how Peyton Manning did. When he didn't, I was a little surprised. And then when they lost last year, 2 years ago, in the wild card round to the Titans, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Because Brady's mentality, he doesn't want to go out as a loser. And so I saw him when he went to Tampa. I was like a little surprised in Tampa. Like, I can't believe the Patriots got rid of him. But it really shows like he proved how he can, play without Belichick. He doesn't need him. But honestly, I'm not going to count Brady out anymore. I know you guys say you don't think he's going to make it back. I think that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is literally the perfect fit for Tom Brady. The offensive line is one of the best in the league. The receivers, the best in the league. Tight ends, best in the league. Defense, arguably top 5. Coach Bruce Arians, he's a pretty good coach as well. So I mean, he doesn't look like he has that much out of the tank really quite yet. I mean, I know he's one good hit away from being done, but with the system and what's around him, I don't know. I think he can still find success. I really do.
I don't think he's done anytime soon either. I mean, I'm not going to bet for that anymore. But, we got Eddie talking in the chat a little bit on the point I wanted to bring up as well is 2 things, really. Eddie said that he's never seen so many Kansas City receivers drop passes. And I can't sit here and talk about the Super Bowl without saying that Patrick Mahomes played his absolute heart out. He made some incredible throws that literally hit off the face mask of Travis Kelce and the Kansas City wide receivers. And I felt like the rest of the team wasn't there for him. When I say the rest of the team, I'm saying the offense, because the defense had to play against the Buccaneers and the referees in the first half. So, I mean, the amount of penalties they got in that first half that were not penalties, I don't even blame them for how many points they gave up, because it literally made it impossible at one point. It got cleaner in the second half, but at that point they were so far behind that Buccaneers were running the ball for a whole second half. The other thing he said was bringing up how the Buccaneers stacked their team, and I had this argument with people I was watching the Super Bowl with, saying, "Oh, I'm so happy for the Bucs. These players, they won a Super Bowl." I'm like, half of their position and key skill players they signed because teams dropped them. Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. Those 2 guys had a big impact in the Super Bowl, and both of them were signed off teams that they were dropped from. You know, it's not like they made a trade. It's not like they drafted or signed them in free agency. Well, I guess technically they signed him in free agency, but I felt like there wasn't as much happiness to see those guys win when they were just cut from their teams and picked up by Tampa. What do you guys think about both those points?
Yeah, for sure. With that point, I feel like it was kind of hidden for Antonio Brown's sake because we see in the past couple of years he's turned to a diva and he's become very unlikable. So I feel people didn't really want to give him credit for doing well just because he became unlikable. On the other note with Leonard Fournette, that's a very underrated point you came up with. I feel like a lot more people should be talking about that. How he went from a Jaguars team that was horrible and he's literally their best player, and they released him and no other team really wanted him. Buccaneers pick him up, and he finally gets that Super Bowl. He scores a touchdown. He has a direct impact in it. So that's a really underrated thing that I think people need to really recognize and praise him for achieving.
Was such a cast off, if you will. Like you look at, I think what was he cut by? 3 teams, I think it was, before Tampa picked him up, right? It was Oakland, New England, and then he was cut by Pittsburgh, right? That was how he first ended up off the team they released.
Yeah, Pittsburgh,
if I'm not
Oakland,
mistaken.
and yeah.
And New England, yeah. So I mean, to echo what Lucas said, seeing him catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl, like, awesome to see. And we didn't really see a lot of him, if him at all. But just to mention it really quickly, Le'Veon Bell, who was cut by the Jets in the middle of the season, was also looked at as a cast off, a former superstar from Pittsburgh. Maybe not playing. I don't remember seeing him on the field, but being in the Super Bowl. So from an Antonio Brown perspective, though, I just wanted to mention Le'Veon. But for Antonio Brown, I'm super happy for him. He's not the player that he used to be at all. He was regarded as arguably the best wide receiver in the game. He's nowhere near that now, but he could still make an impact. And that receiving core, I think, is arguably the most stacked wide receiving core Tom Brady's ever had in his career. I got in an argument with my friend who's a Patriots fan. I'm glad we're talking about the Super Bowl tonight because I wanted to bring this up. He's a diehard Patriots fan, and he was saying how the 07 Patriots of Randy Moss, Wes Welker was a better team than Tom Brady has now in Tampa. I don't know if anybody has an opinion on that. I firmly disagree. I think this defense is incredible. The offensive line is arguably the best he's had in his career. And yes, Randy Moss is Randy Moss. And yes, Wes Welker was really good. But if you gave me the option of having Randy Moss and Wes Welker or having Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Gronk, granted AB and Gronk aren't what they used to be, I'm still taking the Tampa group 10 times out of 10.
Gronk's another guy that came out of retirement and signed with the Bucs too. Although I do love Gronk. If there's anyone on that team I like, it's Gronk. So
100%.
I don't care. I honestly don't care if Gronk wins because Gronk's Gronk. But I'm not a big fan of Antonio Brown or Brady or even Mike. I don't know if anyone else knows, but Mike Evans, I think, got the ball thrown to him 5 times in the first half, and all 5 were pass interference calls. I think he's one of the biggest whiners in the NFL. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but there are certainly guys on Tampa I like. Levante David played a tremendous game, as well as Gronk played a tremendous game. And I want to bring up our last argument or question here is, what did you guys think about Tom Brady winning Super Bowl MVP? Because I had pretty strong feelings on why he shouldn't have won Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I feel like a Super Bowl MVP award, as we see in history, has been very quarterback dominant. Now, I don't think necessarily Tom Brady should have won that. I think Levante David should have won that. Him and the other linebacker, I forget his name, I think his last name's White. Kelsey had a lot of yards, but they really limited him to not getting explosive yards. But I think that the Bucs defense had amazing games, especially Levante David. I think maybe he should have won that MVP. But we all know Super Bowl MVP, most of the time, the winning team's quarterback wins it. Kind of what it is, but definitely think Levante David should have got it.
I agree with what Lucas said, that I feel like it's so quarterback heavy now. Granted, the quarterback is probably the most important position in football, but I mean, I think Levante David deserves it. He's also been on Tampa Bay for a long time too. It would have been nice to see a long-time Tampa Bay Buccaneer, get an award like that. But I don't know if Brady deserved it. He did play really well. The 3 touchdowns were huge, but I think that game was really controlled by Tampa Bay's defense, and a Tampa Bay defensive player probably should have got it. But at the same time, it's not to discredit Tom Brady. I actually think he had a relatively good game. But I do agree that I think at least someone on the defensive side of the ball more than deserved the award because that game was completely dictated by Tampa's defense. If Tampa's defense didn't put on the show that they put on, and to your point, guys like Levante David locking down Travis Kelce, that could have been a completely different game because Kansas City's offense is explosive, and they just did not. They did not look like that at all on Sunday.
Well, I mean, definitely the thing that's helping Brady is that he got high completion percentage, but he only had 204 yards or 5 yards with 3 touchdowns. And I hate how these NFL awards are so quarterback dominated because I'll even say this that the MVP award I thought Derrick Henry should have got it. I just don't feel like it's not like it I hate how it's the norm that the MVP and the Super Bowl MVP are always quarterbacks. Like why is that? Derrick Henry had a historic year. I mean Aaron Rodgers had a great year too. He definitely deserved MVP. But the fact that it wasn't even close, I feel like Derrick Henry deserves a lot more respect. And going back into the Super Bowl MVP argument now, Gronk had 2 touchdowns, and they don't win. The Levante David was all over the place that game. Not even just covering Kelce, but making tackles. I don't know how many tackles he finished with, but every time it seemed like there was a big defensive play, Levante David was in on that play, and that's what he's been doing the last couple of years in Tampa. He's been one of the best middle linebackers in the league. And you guys mentioned it with Tampa's defense really, shut out a prolific Chiefs offense, which is very impressive. How do you not give it to one of those guys? I just feel like I'd like the NFL to get back to not just giving the awards to QBs on the winning team. I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. Something I actually didn't even know was when they were doing the coin toss before the game. I didn't know Levante David was the captain of that team. So again, like that, it would have been nice to see him win the Super Bowl MVP, but it is very quarterback heavy because I don't know if this game was the case, but most of the time, I personally think the quarterback deserves it.
More times than not, I would agree.
Yeah, but was this game one of those? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair argument, and especially nowadays. Shawnee mentioned that he had about 200 passing yards. Nowadays, if you think of a regular season game, you think quarterback didn't have a good game. Normally, these quarterbacks they have like 300 passing yards, so it's like normally it wouldn't be that good of a game. So it just shows how dominant that MVP is for being awarded towards quarterbacks.
Yeah, and it was just the nostalgia of like, oh, there's no question he's gonna get it. Like that's what everyone in my house was saying. I was like, no, come on, Levante David or Gronk, like they should be in the running too. But it's just not the case. So I'm curious that as I grow old, if I'll ever see that change in the NFL. But that's all we got for tonight, guys. Do you guys have any closing concerns about the Super Bowl? No.
I don't think so. I do want to add one thing really quickly, though. Just quick yes or no. Does anybody think next year's going to be a rematch?
No.
I don't know. Actually, let me bring up this real quick. It'll be real quick. Did you see that thing? I think it's a fake report, but they were saying Mahomes wants out of KC. That can't be real, right? It can't be real.
No way.
Right? That's what I thought, too. But do I think it's going to be a repeat? I'm going to say no. I think I don't know if Billy's watching or not, but in my opinion, the Packers should have beaten the Bucs. I thought the Packers were actually a better team than the Bucs, but they just did not execute.
I agree.
So I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. It's not a repeat. I was surprised the Bucs actually got to the Super Bowl. I thought they weren't gonna get through the Packers, but I could definitely see Kansas City being there again. Let me put it this way: I would think it's more likely Kansas City gets back than the Bucs get back. And I guess that's a hot take because of how many Super Bowls Brady's been to, but
I don't think that's a hot take at all. The NFC is a lot more competitive.
That's very true. But another thing I think of too is you've seen recent years the Super Bowl loser. They call it the Super Bowl hangover. Most of the times they don't make it back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I could see. I would bet neither team makes it back. Honestly, if that was the bet, I would take neither over one of them because I just feel like to make that Super Bowl run, even though the Chiefs have done it twice in a row now. Just fate has to fall into your hands at some point because it is just so hard to do. So I would bet neither actually get back. All right, that is all we have for tonight, guys. We will be back next Wednesday. Probably some basketball. I want to talk about if that All-Star game is going to happen or not and our thoughts on it. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It's g.o.a.t._talk. We post when we're going live and a lot of other stuff on there as well. I'd like to thank Faz and Luca for joining us today, and also our associate producer Georgie, who is now taking control of the social media. Thank God, because I stunk at it, so thank you for that. And we will be back next Wednesday right here on Hawk TV's YouTube. Hawk TV is a TV station here at Monmouth, and I hope everyone has a safe week.